tariff is another sign that globalization as we knew it is over. The US is prioritizing economic security and domestic resilience over open markets. That means higher barriers for foreign goods and more friction in international trade. Now, let's talk about how this will affect the auto industry. In the short term, US automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis stand to benefit. Pickup trucks and vans are among their most profitable segments, and this tariff helps protect them from cheaper imports. It also gives American manufacturers more time to transition to electric versions without facing a flood of competition from abroad. However, there's a catch, and it's a big one. By making imported vehicles more expensive, the tariff could raise prices for consumers. Companies like Toyota, Nissan, and Hyundai, which import some of their light commercial vehicles, may pass those costs on to buyers. Even domestic automakers could face higher production costs, since many truck components, batteries, and electronics still come from overseas suppliers. That could mean more expensive vehicles, fewer affordable options, and slower adoption of electric trucks. There's also the question of retaliation. Trade partners rarely stay quiet when hit with steep tariffs. China could respond with new duties on US exports, possibly targeting agriculture or high-end goods. Mexico, too, may push back, especially since the new tariffs could violate parts of the USMCA trade agreement, which governs trade between the US, Canada, and Mexico. If that happens, this tariff could spark a mini trade war within North America, the very region that was supposed to represent economic cooperation and stability. Now let's zoom out. This isn't just about trucks, it's about the future of global trade policy. The 25% tariff is part of a broader US strategy to re-industrialize the country and reduce reliance on China and other foreign producers. Over the past year, Washington has introduced similar tariffs on semiconductors, green tech, and batteries, all key pillars of the next-generation economy. Together, these measures form a kind of economic firewall, protecting US industries from low-cost foreign competition while encouraging domestic production. But that firewall comes with costs. It could fragment supply chains, disrupt investment flows, and strain relationships with key allies. European and Asian partners already see America's trade stance as increasingly unilateral, more about protecting itself than cooperating globally. And yet, there's logic behind it. The US government argues that global trade has become too risky, too dependent on geopolitically unstable regions. The pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and rising tensions with China all exposed the vulnerabilities of long, fragile supply chains. By imposing higher tariffs, the US hopes to force companies to manufacture more at home or within allied nations. In that sense, the new 25% truck duty is both a warning and a signal. It's a warning to foreign automakers, particularly China's BYD, Geely, and SAIC, that the US market will not be an open door. And it's a signal to American companies that Washington expects them to reinvest domestically, not offshore. But this strategy also risks creating economic inefficiency. Global supply chains evolved for a reason, to lower costs and increase specialization. Reversing that trend could make goods more expensive and reduce overall growth. Economists warn that too much protectionism could backfire, driving inflation and reducing competitiveness in the long run. Still, this is the world we're moving toward, one defined by economic nationalism and strategic protection. The 25% truck tariff may seem like a single policy change, but it represents a turning point in trade philosophy. The United States is no longer chasing the cheapest supplier. It's chasing control. And that shift will have lasting consequences for every global industry that relies on cross-border manufacturing. In the months ahead, expect ripple effects. Car prices could rise. US dealerships might struggle with supply. Foreign automakers will accelerate efforts to build factories inside America to bypass tariffs. And nations affected by this policy may introduce countermeasures of their own. This is the new face of globalization. Slower, more regional, more strategic. The US isn't just reshaping its truck market, it's reshaping the rules of trade itself. And this 25% duty is just the latest sign that the era of open markets is giving way to something new, an era where economic power and national security are one and the same. A measure that has quietly shaped the American auto market ever since. That policy effectively kept foreign automakers from dominating the lucrative pickup truck segment, one of America's most profitable markets. It's why US roads are filled with Fords, Chevys, and Rams instead of imported models. The new tariffs, however, extend that legacy into the modern electric vehicle era. The 25% duty now applies not just to traditional trucks, but to electric trucks and vans as well, particularly those made in China and Mexico. That's where the controversy begins. This move is aimed squarely at protecting US EV and auto manufacturing, as foreign automakers, especially Chinese ones, start to gain traction in global markets. China has been aggressively exporting low-cost EVs, often priced 20 to 30% lower than US models. These new tariffs are designed to block those imports before they can undercut American automakers on their home turf. But the implications go far beyond autos. This tariff is another sign that globalization as we knew it is over. The United States has just shaken the foundations of global trade. Again, the Biden administration has announced a new 25% tariff on imported trucks, and while that might sound like a niche policy, its impact will ripple far beyond the auto industry. This move signals a deeper shift in America's trade strategy, one that could reshape manufacturing, supply chains, and international relations for years to come. At first glance, it might look like a simple protectionist measure, a way to defend US automakers and encourage domestic production. But this new tariff isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a broader pattern of economic nationalism that's redefining how the US approaches global trade. So, what exactly does this 25% truck duty mean? And why is it such a big deal? Let's start with some background. For decades, US tariffs on imported trucks have been part of what's known as the chicken tax. It dates back to the 1960s, when the US and Europe clashed over tariffs on chicken exports. In retaliation, Washington imposed a 25% tariff on imported light trucks, a measure that has quietly shaped the American auto market